And honestly, like to be a queen, it takes a lot of responsibility. So I want to see women in this world take some self responsibility, including the responsibility for their own pleasure and not just like handing that off to someone. Let's see. I also just feel like, of course, when you do this work, you end up feeling more in love with yourself in more ways than one. And I cannot wait to share with you some of the the ways that women are experiencing that. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Pelvic Pulse podcast. I'm Dr. Brittney Ellers, and I'm actually recording this in a different space than I normally do. I am in Costa Rica, literally just landed in our Airbnb about an hour or so ago and changed into our bikinis. So here we are. I'm not naked. Oh my God. If you are watching this on YouTube, please know I'm wearing a tube top, a whole bathing suit. So yeah, I am really excited to be dropping in with you on this episode. And maybe just to ground ourselves, we take a deep breath together because we're going to go deep. Take an inhale through your nose and an open mouth exhale. Relax the shoulders. Do that again. Breathe in and exhale, let it go. Okay. Today, we are going to be talking a little bit about vaginal alchemy and what that means, what these transmissions and transformations are that have been coming through for the women who do this work. And when I say this work, I mean really connecting to their bodies on a deep, deep level. I think when you spend time touching yourself on the skin surface or deeper, going internally, maybe working with your own fingers, your own hands, or wand, you can access some crazy things. And today, I just really wanted to share with you anonymously some of these stories that have been coming through that women are sharing with me, whether that was after they did my feel free guided mapping session, which is literally the tipping point of the iceberg, or the tip of the iceberg. And hopefully, it's a tipping point for you to get yourself into the program, into the work of vaginal alchemy, because there's so much in there that I wish every woman knew. And that is just one practice out of the 20 plus that are in vaginal alchemy that are all slightly different and have slightly different cues, take you in deeper. So okay, one thing I got recently from a friend was that she felt like a queen after she did the feel mapping session, which again is let me talk you through what she shared a little bit about later, but imagine caring for yourself so much that you feel like a queen. And what is that queen energy doing for you? What does that royalty feeling do for you? What if you walked through every aspect of your life as if you were a queen that deserved the time, space, attention, care that a queen does? I um I really do want to live in a world where women treat themselves as such, and I want them to live in a world where they can be so utterly honest and where they can have a deep self-trust. And honestly, like to be a queen, it takes a lot of responsibility. So I want to see women in this world take some self responsibility, including the responsibility for their own pleasure and not just like handing that off to someone. Let's see. I also just feel like, of course, when you do this work, you end up feeling more in love with yourself in more ways than one. And I cannot wait to share with you some of the the ways that women are experiencing that. So just another, reiteration. I want you to remember that my work feels it's very blended, right? The guided mapping sessions where I guide people one-on-one or in group online, or the hands-on, hands-in meditations that I do in person, the education, the insights, and more. They happen in a lot of different containers, including the feel mapping session, the workshops that I've done in person or online, and in the Vaginal Alchemy Reloaded course, and in the one-on-ones. So I call those descend sessions, right? We descend into the body, we descend into the pelvic bowl, which is my focus. And okay, so some of these reflections and amazing pieces that I want you to consider if you're looking to feel like a queen on a regular basis. I think there's a big takeaway that I really want you to like think about right now. And I'll reiterate it again at the end. But I want you to remember your inherent worth, your inherent value, the value you were born with. If you want to say it like that. I don't want you to settle for anything in your life. Like even the way you pleasure yourself. I don't want you to settle there, especially there. So, yeah, whether that's also in your healthcare or the kind of sex that you'd like to experience, it ripples out, right? So, let's talk about a few recent vaginal alchemy stories, right? Like I said, they can happen in all kinds of different containers, but these are some of the big ones that I'm like, ooh, these are so good. Um, I was listening back to one of the final live guided sessions for vaginal alchemy. It was for the second round that I did live. And one of the women, she had given birth and was experiencing some pain with sex postpartum. And there was I think, a little bit of scarring there. So she was looking to feel more expansive in her pleasure. And she reflected back something really big to me, which it really resonates and hits home with me because oftentimes I haven't been like this, but I've learned often the hard way that this is what is important. And that is that she felt that after doing this weekly for 5 weeks, she could be more honest with her partner with what she wants in the bedroom. Whoa. When have you ever not been honest with yourself or with a partner in bed? And how does that affect the actual way that your body functions once you're done? I'd be very curious to hear if you've ever noticed something off. Um, Oftentimes I hear a lot of people who, they blow past their own boundaries and it happens, right? I'm not trying to like put blame, but also, right, coming back to the responsibility piece. People who blow past their boundaries in bed with a partner, and then after the fact, they might get an infection, whether that's a yeast infection, a UTI, vaginal, or bacterial vaginosis. It can come through as a lot of things, but that is definitely something to consider, right? How are you being honest with yourself in your own touch, in your own world, with your own health? Okay, that's one story. That's one aspect of the VAlchemy work. Another one that was recent, I actually I'm kind of combining a couple of people in my mind that I've been working with or have worked with. And this one has to do with anyone who has experienced sexual or medical trauma, which I feel like if you want to really bundle it up together, I don't always do this, right? But if you want to bundle it up as like a boundary rupture, right? Someone going past your boundaries when you've said no or you've been unsure, but it happens anyways, where someone um, just accesses your body in a way that you don't actually want or haven't explicitly said yes to. If that was a repeated thing or a singular moment in time in your life, that assault to your genitals, to your pelvis, I I want you to know that it's very, very common and very prevalent for people who have experienced something like this to have and hold a lot of anger in their tissues. Deep, deep anger, deep, deep grief. So, what's really important in like moving through some of these energies, like say you're doing a mapping session, or say when I've been in one on one with people, there's a lot of stuff even below the grief. Sometimes there like literally needs to be words that comes out of people's mouths. And I do want to tie in some of these stories with um, the intuitive hits that I've received for people, whether I'm in session with, again, one person or multiple people. But those things that need to be said, like you might not know that you need to say anything, right? You might not know that you need to complete the loop and tell this person, whoever has transgressed you, tell the person who was maybe in charge of you or responsible for you. Maybe it was your mother or your father that was just sitting there and not protecting you. So you have anger towards that and you haven't processed that. That will come alive. And what's below the anger is usually a lot of grief for the loss of any erotic innocence that you carry, which I think everyone inherently has a level of erotic innocence, right? The simple, sweet, like curiosity of what our bodies are and what they can do. And ooh, this feels good. Ooh, wait, oh, someone caught me, or oh, someone took advantage of it. Like that never feels good. But maybe also there are levels I've worked with people who have combated in their own hearts and minds. Like, I knew this thing was wrong that was happening to me, but it also felt good at the same time. So, how confusing is that? And again, there's a layer and level of anger and grief, and it's felt in the tissues. So, what we do, at least in my practice, and whether you do this again on your own or with me, you learn how to not only re-titrate your nervous system to appropriate touch, but you get this reparative experience of being in communication with your body, with yourself, or with another, so that eventually you can experience a, I don't want to say optimized, but you get to experience a level and capacity of emotions and vulnerability, and eventually true intimacy with yourself or with a partner. Like, what would that mean for you? What would that look like for you? Where you can be fully present in your body and not have your mind offshoot to something else. I have a lot of people who dissociate in these practices. And that's part of the reason why we go really, really slow and why if I'm with someone, I'm constantly cueing, not constantly, but you know what I mean. I am there giving cues. I'm there asking questions. I'm making eye contact. I keep my eyes on you, making sure if I feel anything gets to be, if anything feels or starts to feel dissociative, it's time to come back to the body, come back to the breath, something simple, right? Okay. Third little example. Mm, a big learning for a lot of the women, I'd say almost every woman, honestly. I just mentioned it, but the slowing down enough to realize that there is a lot we're not willing to feel quite yet. And that's okay. But that discernment was learned through the slow guided touch. And you can really only experience it by doing it. The accountability and the group work also makes um, you feel not alone in that, like makes you feel like, oh, I'm not the only one who feels slow. And I'll tell you a story, right? I've said it before, I think on the podcast, but also maybe just in like Instagram clips here or there. The first time I ever guided was guided through a self-mapping session. It wasn't called that, but that's what I call it. It was like an hour long practice and I was pretty bored. And I was like, wait, how? I was like watching myself think this, and my higher self is like, why are you bored of your body? Your body is magnificent. Your body is like so intricately designed and has so much sensation. Like, what about it is actually boring? Oh, it's just the way you've trained your mind to think about your body and the way you've trained your touch. Like, slow touch is in and of itself really, really healing. I cannot wait to read this thing to you later from one of my friends. Okay. One other little piece that I will name is that whether it's hands on or hands in, the vaginal alchemy work, also whether it's like not even close to the vagina, whether it's like on the pelvis, on someone's hip, on someone's shoulder and neck, I still refer to it as vaginal alchemy work um, to make it confusing, I guess. But I hope you understand that it's just alchemical work. It's somatic, alchemical, transformative work. And when I am having someone work with their body or I am actually on their body, I get a lot of hits for the masculine these days. So connections to fathers, connections to sons or men who have somehow hurt that woman's lineage, even if it wasn't them. A really good example of this actually is Sam Harvey's episode. That's episode 44, Permission Granted, Have the Pregnancy You Want. When we did our one-on-one work, I don't want to spoil it, but there was an amazing download that she had while I was working with her. And so see, sometimes like it's not necessarily always me having these intuitive hits, but my hits are actually usually the question. Like I have a question land in my system, whether I hear that or I feel that, and if I'm feeling something in the body like I did with her, I want to know about it. I want to know what it's bringing up. So you'll have to go listen to that one for more specifics. But basically, it had to do with her birth and what it was going to do for her lineage regarding the masculine. And that was a really, really powerful one, right? That I think is like just a great example of how we can blend these seemingly physical pieces. Maybe you actually experience some dysfunction or pain in your body, but then maybe the physical treatments aren't always working. Sometimes you have to get deeper than that and go under, go below the surface. And if you're someone who's open to that, I think that could really, really heal you. That could actually be the root, right? If you tap into the energetics, if you tap into your spiritual messages. Okay. I want to share this insight and I'm going to go point by point here. I want to read you what this friend wrote regarding her mapping session, which this isn't the first time she's done one of my mapping sessions. So keep that in mind. I think this might be her second one. But she says, the beginning going over the picture/map of the pussy made me realize how little I'm familiar with the anatomy, even though you've taught me before, and how I feel it would have been so helpful to know as a teenage girl, or like even if I learned it in college, lol. Why don't we? Big old question marks and exclamation points. I felt much appreciation that this is a goal of yours and proud of your devotion to this calling. I mean, that was a really sweet note at the end, but I 100% agree. I think even that being the first point that she wrote what people experience after doing the mapping session is, yeah, a lot of, again, grief for not having been taught this in an empowered way. Maybe you're taught it very, very briefly in sex education or health ed class, but they don't go into it in the lens of deep self-understanding and or pleasure. So, yeah, I would love to, I mean, just talking out loud now, I would love to make something like this specifically for younger women. And honestly, I think feel would be really great for any woman, let's just say above the age of 16. Um, yeah, I think it would be really great if we had more women teaching other women, or if women taught their daughters, like on a little diagram what this really looks like and what to pay attention to. Goals. Okay. Point two. The anointing of oil on my pussy felt so amazing. I felt like a queen, right? Because this is our theme for today's solo, how to feel like a queen. And thought, why don't I do this every time I get out of the shower? Great question. I realized I'm consistently in a rush to get things done, in quotes, and the act of slowly and gently massaging with abundance of oil made me want to honor myself this way regularly. It made me realize again how I live more in fight or flight of doing, masculine, and spend almost zero time actually in feminine feeling, noticing, and sensing. I felt like, oh my God, imagine if I did this on a regular basis, I'd have so many more downloads. The anointing of oil on different parts, tears started gently fall down my cheek. Perhaps just because she was being given attention. And I thought of how many men have not given her attention like that. I must not settle for this. So that point actually was one of the reasons I wanted to do this solo episode. Really amazing, amazing insights here. I'm curious for you if you feel the same when you do a practice of self care, whatever that is. If that's anointing your pussy with oil, if it's using a wand, if it's doing gua sha on your face, if it's doing a hair mask, a face mask, or cupping your body, anointing your entire body with oil. Is there a reason? Is there a true reason at the root of like why you don't do this for yourself more regularly? And if you do it, are you rushing through the process? Is it just another thing you're trying to check off the list? Is it also maybe another thing you're trying to get out of it? Like, is it actually an act of self love? Or are we trying to extract something? Are we trying to even extract like downloads or beauty? Like, I think of the reason why I do my gua sha. Sometimes it's not very present. There are days where I am also rushing through the process and I don't do my 10 strokes per part, right? Because that can take, like, that practice, if I really spend my time with it, can be 5 minutes long, which is kind of a long thing to do in the bathroom. But there are days where I do love taking that time and it feels rejuvenating to my energy versus like, oh, I got to do this really fast because this knot here is starting to hurt me. And also, I'm getting wrinkles here. So I want to make sure those get away and I reduce those at all costs. Because why? Because conditioning. But think about that. The fight, flight, maybe even freeze, fawn is still part of like survival and doing, and maybe an unhealthy version of your masculine energy. But when we're in the feeling, the sensing, the noticing, the embodiment, that gives this whole thing, this whole practice, all these self-care things a different flavor, one that probably feels a little more life-giving. And then think about, I just love what she says at the end. I thought of how many men have not given her attention like that, and I must not settle for this. So this ties up back to the remember your inherent worth and do not settle for less. I wrote actually on my Substack, which is new, just for fun, another platform to be on for fun. Um, I wrote an article while I was literally, I started my period on a Wednesday with the new moon. And then on Thursday, I decided to stay home and free bleed on my blanket. One of the sponsors of the podcast. I just freaking love those blankets for this exact reason. I could just chill on the couch. And I decided, because I had had a shower thought earlier that morning, and the word dropped in and it was cherished. And then as I sat there, I just like wrote this story about James and myself and how I was I was basically self-abandoning for a lot of reasons, for convenience, for fear, um, and I go into more details on that if you wanted to read it. I'll link that below. But at the end of that article, or at the end of writing that, at the end of the actual experience itself, it was like, oh, I don't have to settle for a man who doesn't get me, for a man who won't spend time on me and with me in these specific ways that I really desire. I get to be met. And let me say this really clearly, you get to be met. And if you're not met, you have some action to take. If you are specifically, if you're a projector woman, go and listen to the previous episode of the podcast, episode 61, I believe, with Sam Zagar. She will pump you up if you are a projector who potentially needs to take some action. Because I think, again, everyone who listens to this, whether also if you're a man listening to this podcast, I want you to understand how much work women are putting in and how tired they are. Like Sam mentioned also in the podcast episode before this, we really are just looking to be met, honestly. Going back up to the top of the episode, that is something I mentioned. That's the kind of world I really want to live in. I want to live in a world where everyone can be as honest and as just truthful and self-responsible as possible to be able to create relating and relationship and intimacy from that place. Like that's built from a true foundation, pelvic floor foundation. I want every woman to feel like she can be a queen in her own world, where her body, every single part of her, every single part of you, if you're listening, every single part of you gets to be treated that way, including your pelvic floor, including your vulva, including your entire clitoris, not just the head of the clitoris, even your labia, even the parts that have hair on them, even your booty hole, because that is also a part of your body, your pelvic floor. If you want to feel like a queen, and you're just not right now, take a look at your seat, quite literally. What throne are you sitting on? How does that throne feel? How does your pelvic floor feel? How does your pussy feel? And if you want to get to know her on a deeper level, this episode's coming out on Friday, August 1st. And since I am on vacation, literally recording this the day before, I'm going to keep Vaginal Alchemy at the price point until I get back from vacation next Tuesday. So you have a little more time to say yes to this journey before the price doubles to $888 if you're paying on a payment plan. I would really love more women to be in this work so they can feel this way about themselves. Because I think that will literally change the world if more women worked and more women just were. Like, I want to say be, like, just be in their bodies, not worked on their bodies, but be in their bodies. So, with that, I will also mention that in September, I'm going to be starting a monthly call for anyone who does join Vaginal Alchemy Reloaded, even on a self-paced basis, whether you decided to join a long time ago or are now joining. It's going to be kind of a rolling admissions kind of a deal, where once you sign up for the cohort, we're going to be trying out these monthly calls until the end of the year. Because again, I really want to be involved. I want to hear about your journey. I want to hear these insights and feedback, which I just love them. I love hearing from you. I love knowing what, if anything, is shifting in your life once you get acquainted and comfortable and confident. So that's my invitation for you. I hope you decide to join and, yeah, start to feel like a queen. Okay, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening and putting your finger on the Pelvic Pulse podcast. I'm Brittney Ellers. This episode's music was created by Just Tech. If you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love for you to follow the show on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you listen. Just tap that follow button. And if this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. That is how this work ripples outward. If you're new to my world or want to deepen your connection to your pelvic health, I have a gift for you. Visit the link in the show notes to explore all of my free resources. Whether you're curious, healing, or reclaiming, this is a beautiful place to begin. And if something stirred in you today, if you felt a spark of remembrance or a readiness to go deeper, then I'd love to invite you into Vaginal Alchemy Reloaded. This is my signature journey for women who want to not just heal, but alchemize their relationship with their pleasure, their pelvic space, and their power. It's deep, layered, and held in sisterhood. If you've been thinking about it, now is the time. Pricing increases August 1st. And if you're not quite ready to commit, you can start with Feel, a free guided pelvic mapping session that gives you a taste of the depth and embodiment we move through inside VAlchemy. It's experiential, intimate, and reverent. You can learn more about both by heading to the show notes. Trust your timing, but don't ignore your knowing. I'll see you in the next episode.